This story is about three men who were born into poverty and grew up together as temple boys during their childhood. Nate, Liam, and Wyatt came from extremely poor families. With nowhere else to go, all three ended up living at a temple, where a kind-hearted abbot took them in and supported them. Thanks to the temple's help, the three boys were able to finish high school. After graduation, the abbot brought them to Bangkok, hoping to give them a better future. He introduced them to a fellow monk at another temple and asked him to look after Nate, Liam, and Wyatt, so they would have a place to stay while continuing their education. The abbot wanted them to study until they earned a bachelor's degree and escape the life of hardship they had always known. Nate, Liam, and Wyatt shared a strong bond. They were good friends because they had grown up suffering side by side. Among the three, Liam was different. He was more selfish by nature and had little interest in studying. But despite his flaws, Nate and Wyatt never held it against him. They continued to support him, pushing him to keep going, and hoping he would graduate with them. In the end, however, Liam failed to complete his university degree. He chose to walk away from his studies and separated himself from his friends, leaving to make a living in his own way. As for Nate and Wyatt, they successfully graduated and went on to secure respectable jobs with decent salaries. Among the three, Wyatt was the one who later received an opportunity to work overseas. Eventually, the three men went their separate ways and began living their own lives. Even so, they stayed in touch, regularly checking in on one another, especially Liam. He often reached out to Nate, asking for financial help, and Nate always helped him without hesitation. Sometimes Liam paid the money back, sometimes he did not, but Nate never complained. In his heart, he believed that helping a friend was simply the right thing to do. Time passed. Nate eventually got married and started a family of his own. On Nate's wedding day, Liam was unable to attend. Nate understood and did not hold it against him. As for Wyatt, despite his busy schedule abroad, he flew back to Thailand just to attend Nate's wedding. Nate's wife was named Sophie. She was a beautiful young woman, perfectly suited to him. Sophie's friends were all secretly jealous of her because Nate loved her deeply and treated her with genuine care after they were married. Nate's life was far from poor. Through diligence, patience, and unwavering dedication to his work, he had saved enough money to buy a house and a car. He wanted Sophie to live with dignity and comfort, so he asked her to stay at home, to take care of everything there. "I don't want you to be tired," Nate told her gently. "I'll work hard and take care of you myself. All you need to do is take care of the house and take care of me," Nate told her gently. That was enough for Sophie. She was overjoyed. She truly believed she was lucky, just as her friends kept telling her again and again. So she promised Nate that she would love him and take care of him for the rest of her life. "Thank you, Nate," she said softly. "I'll love you and take care of you the best I can." Nate and Sophie lived happily together for a long time. Sophie lived comfortably. She lacked nothing. Her days passed slowly, peacefully, but over time, that comfort began to turn into boredom. Every day felt the same house, the same routine, the same silence, and there was one thing missing. They had no children. They tried naturally. They consulted doctors, they hoped, but in the end, we still had no child. I tried to comfort Sophie. I told her that it was okay, that we could live happily, just the two of us. But as the days went by, Sophie's sense of emptiness only grew deeper, and her boredom became harder to hide. As for Nate, most of his days were spent working. So whenever he had time, he tried to make it up to Sophie. He took her out to see the world, traveling here, traveling there, sometimes even overseas. But those trips only eased her boredom. For a short while, eventually, everything returned to the same emptiness. Until one day, Liam came to visit Nate at their home. That night, Nate, Liam, and Sophie sat together, drinking and talking, like old friends who had not seen each other in a long time. Sophie got along well with Liam. She liked people like him, someone lively, someone who knew how to have fun. Not long after that visit, Liam came again, and then again. Soon he began coming more and more often. Nate did not think much of it. He even said that if Liam came when he was not home, Sophie could take care of him first. Liam was genuinely happy that his friend never held anything against him. And he found that he and Sophie talked easily, as if they shared the same rhythm. More and more often, the two of them sat together, drinking, laughing, letting time slip away. Until one night, they made a mistake. That night, as the two of them sat drinking together, Nate did not come home. He had an urgent problem at work that needed to be handled immediately. So that night, only Liam and Sophie remained. They drank heavily. They laughed. They sang together, carefree and loud. Alcohol blurred their judgment. The night grew longer, and in the end, they ended up in the same bed. After that night, they began meeting outside more often, quietly, secretly, without once stopping to realize that what they were doing was a deep betrayal. A betrayal of a friend, a betrayal of a husband, a grave mistake. "Sophie, do you think Nate will find out?" I whispered, fear creeping into my voice. "I'm scared too," I admitted. Liam only smiled. "Don't think too much," he said calmly. "Nate will never find out." Liam was pleased with Sophie. She was young, she was beautiful, and to him, that was more than enough. Deep down, Sophie was not the quiet gentlewoman she appeared to be in truth. She was passionate, restless, drawn to excitement. She loved nightlife. She loved drinking. She loved the thrill of going out after dark. But when she was with Nate, she never showed that side of herself. With Liam, it was different. She let herself be exactly who she wanted to be, indulging every desire, and pushing all sense of right and wrong aside. Sophie and Liam continued their secret relationship. They met in hidden places. They slipped away together quietly, and Nate never suspected a thing. All he noticed was that Sophie began dressing more beautifully, going out more often than before. But he said nothing. He simply believed that his wife was bored from being alone at home too much. Time passed. Then one day, a colleague from Nate's workplace approached him. The man hesitated before speaking, then told Nate that he had seen Sophie and Liam at a short-stay motel together. The moment Nate heard those words, he reacted with anger. He scolded his colleague sharply and firmly insisted that his wife and his friend would never do something so disgraceful. He refused to believe it, not even for a second. Believing that Nate would never suspect a thing, Sophie grew bolder. She left the house more and more often, without caution, without fear. But deep inside Nate, the words his colleague had spoken never stopped echoing. They gnawed at him quietly, day after day. And Sophie's behavior began to feel unmistakably wrong. That day, Nate finally reached his limit, unable to endure the doubt any longer. He secretly took a company car and followed Sophie. He did not confront her. He did not call her name. He simply drove behind her, keeping his distance, his heart pounding, as the truth crept closer with every turn of the road, until I saw it with my own eyes. Sophie met with Liam, and the two of them disappeared into a hotel together. My heart shattered. I never imagined that the friend I had helped in every possible way, and the wife I loved with all my heart, would betray me like this. The next day, I called Liam and told him to come to the house. Sophie was there too. When Sophie and Liam faced each other, in front of me, neither of them could meet my eyes. They stood in silence, awkward, uneasy. Their gazes drifted elsewhere, as if avoiding the truth would make it disappear. "I know everything," I said quietly. The moment those words left my mouth, both Sophie and Liam turned pale. They exchanged nervous glances, fear written clearly across their faces. "I will forgive this," I continued. "I forgive both of you," I said. "But Liam, I want you out of my life. Disappear," I continued coldly. "Don't ever let me see your face again." As for Sophie, I turned to her. "You and I will stay the same," I said quietly. "I forgive you. Just don't ever do this again." After those words, I walked into the house, my face calm, but my heart torn apart. Liam watched me go. Then he shrugged, as if none of it mattered to him at all. He turned to Sophie and spoke casually. "If you want to come live with me," he said, "you can." Sophie hesitated. Nate loved her deeply, and compared to Liam, Nate had a far better life. If she stayed with Nate, she would live comfortably, without struggle, without worry. So Sophie chose Nate, but even then, she could not let Liam go. She continued meeting him in secret, and Liam began to whisper ideas into her ear. He urged her to deceive Nate, to lure him out, to make him come alone. When Nate arrived, Liam killed him without hesitation, and Sophie did not stop it. She only said one thing: if Nate dies, she told Liam calmly, everything he owns will belong to me. And so, she helped Liam kill her own husband. Nate died a tragic death. His eyes were left wide open, filled with shock and unbearable heartbreak. He was killed by the hands of the friend he trusted and the wife he loved the most. After they ended Nate's life, the two of them carried his body deep into a forest and buried him there, as if erasing him would erase their guilt. After that, Liam and Sophie lived together freely. They spent Nate's assets. They enjoyed the life he had built. Soon, they moved in together openly, no longer hiding from anyone. But their happiness did not last long. Not long after, Nate's ghost began to haunt them. Both of them started having nightmares. Every night, they dreamed of the same image. Nate stood before them, his body soaked in blood, his eyes wide open, staring, watching, waiting, and he stared back at them, with eyes filled with hatred and vengeance. Every time they closed their eyes to sleep, both Sophie and Liam dreamed the same dream. Exactly the same. Nate's ghost came to them every night, haunting them relentlessly. In their dreams, he stood silently, his blood-soaked body unmoving, his eyes wide open, fixed on them without blinking. The stare never softened, the stare never faded, until neither of them could truly sleep anymore. Every time they closed their eyes, Nate was there. Liam grew angry, restless, and he began to place the blame on Sophie. Sophie fought back, shouting at him, telling him that everything was Liam's fault. Their arguments became more frequent, louder, sharper. The happiness they once pretended to have was completely gone. They lived together, but without peace. Then one night, Sophie jolted awake from a nightmare. Her heart raced, her breath shook. In her dream, she was lying beside Nate's body. His corpse was rotting, covered in decay, exactly where she and Liam had buried him. She tried to scream, but the horror had not ended. When she turned to look at the man lying next to her, she froze. It was Liam, and his face was crawling with maggots. Sophie screamed and ran to curl herself up beside the sofa, her body shaking uncontrollably. Liam jolted awake at the sound of her scream. The moment his eyes opened, they widened in terror. Standing before him was Nate. Nate's body was rotting, covered entirely with crawling maggots. They moved across his flesh, writhing, alive. Nate stared straight at Liam, his eyes burning with hatred. "You bastard, Liam," his voice rasped. "My traitor friend, my worthless friend, I'm going to kill you." Nate's voice was slow, heavy, dragging each word out unnaturally. He began walking toward Liam, step by step, slowly. Liam panicked. His hands trembled as he reached for the nearest thing beside him, a glass bottle of liquor. He threw the bottle with all his strength, but it missed. The bottle struck Sophie instead, cracking against her head. Blood poured out instantly, and she collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Liam didn't look back. He ran out of the room and fled into the night. His steps were unsteady, his breath ragged, as he ran along a poorly lit road where traffic was hard to see. He kept running, slower and slower. As he reached the road and tried to cross it, Nate's presence behind him blocked his vision. Liam never saw the car coming. The impact was brutal. His body was thrown to the ground. His leg shattered. Blood burst from his mouth. But even then, Liam refused to stop. Dragging his broken body, he crawled forward in desperation. Because when he turned his head, he still saw Nate, walking toward him, relentless. Liam crawled across to the other side of the road. That area was under construction, dark, uneven, silent. Beside him there was a deep drainage trench. Liam was in unbearable pain. He could crawl no further. His breathing became shallow, broken. Trembling, he raised his hands and pressed them together, begging Nate, who stood over him. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm sorry, my friend." But Nate spoke coldly. "Jump. he said. Now, Liam looked down into the darkness below. It was dim, endless, terrifying. He shook his head, too afraid to move. Nate did not speak again. He only stared, and slowly, Liam's body began to rise. Higher, higher. Liam screamed in terror, his voice breaking apart in the night. Then, his body dropped, thud, into the darkness below. Liam's screams echoed across the construction site. His body had fallen onto exposed steel bars, piercing him from head to toe. He died there, slowly, in unbearable agony. And when Liam's life finally ended, Nate stood still for a moment. Then his figure faded, vanishing into the darkness, as if his vengeance had finally been fulfilled. And then, he appeared inside Liam's apartment. Nate stood there, watching Sophie as she frantically packed her belongings. Desperate to leave, just as she turned around, she froze. Nate was standing right in front of her, blocking the way out. He stared at her intensely, his expression dark and unyielding. "Sophie, come with me," he said softly. "Come with me." Sophie screamed in terror and bolted out of the room. But she slipped and fell as she tried to get back on her feet. Her eyes dropped, and she saw Nate's legs. His pants were torn and tattered. His feet were decayed, crawling with worms. Her body trembled. Slowly she forced herself to stand and face her husband, now a ghost. His eyes bulged, as if they were about to burst from their sockets. His face was ruined, rotting, collapsed in on itself. Some of the worms fell from his flesh, dropping onto his torso, before burrowing back inside. And Nate kept staring at her, silent, unmoving, waiting. Sophie gagged, almost vomiting. She could not bring herself to look at her husband's face. Yet she felt powerless, unable to move according to her own will. Nate had already taken control of her. Sophie stood frozen, forcing herself to endure the revulsion and the terror clawing inside her mind. "Sophie, come with me." Nate's body began to float ahead slowly. No matter how hard Sophie tried to resist with her legs, with her body, with her thoughts, she could not command herself anymore. Step by step, against her will, she followed Nate's form, unable to refuse, unable to stop. "No, I'm not going," Sophie cried weakly. Barefoot, she ran out of Liam's apartment. She kept walking, and then walking faster. Her breath burned, her chest tightened, as if her lungs were about to give out. She walked until her feet were torn, blood seeping onto the ground beneath her. And then, she arrived at Nate's house, the home where she and Nate once lived together. Now, it looked more and more like an abandoned house. Neglected, silent, forgotten. Standing in front of the gate, her feet bleeding, Sophie looked around. Nate was gone, but the gate stood open. So did the front door, as if waiting for her. Without thought, without resistance. The woman stepped inside, her movements empty, her eyes hollow. She walked in, as though guided by something unseen. As she stepped inside, the gate closed behind her. Then the front door shut as well. Sophie walked upstairs, straight toward the bedroom. When she entered the room, she saw Nate standing there, waiting, without resistance. She walked to the bed, now covered in thick layers of dust, and lay down upon it. In that instant, Nate's form vanished, and then, he appeared beside her, inside her. Sophie almost screamed. The sound rose up her throat, burning, but only a faint, broken breath escaped her lips. She lay there, staring straight at Nate. She wanted to close her eyes, to escape that rotting face, but she couldn't. It was as if her eyes were forced open, unblinking. Her mind was fully aware of everything, every sound, every presence. Yet she could not resist. She could not fight back. She could not move. "Please, please, Nate," Sophie begged weakly. "Please, let me go. I'm scared. I know I was wrong. Please." Her plea came out as a faint whisper, but Nate remained still. He did not respond. He did not react. Sophie lay there, her body rigid with overwhelming fear, tears streaming down her face without end, and the night around her remained silent, unforgiving. Day after day, Sophie lay in the same position. Exhaustion eventually dragged her into sleep. She drifted in and out, waking and sleeping for several days, and every time she woke, Nate's rotting face was there, close, too close, until the final day came. She awoke weak and drained, barely able to breathe, and then she felt it. Nate's arms, soft with decay, loose with rotting flesh, wrapped around her. Holding her tight, Sophie slowly slipped away, her breath fading, her body trembling with the same fear that had never left her. And when Sophie died, Nate's form vanished as well. Gone. The next morning, several police officers arrived at Nate's house. Wyatt had been having bad dreams for many nights in a row, ever since he was still overseas. An unshakable unease weighed heavily on his heart. He tried calling Nate, no answer. He tried calling Liam, no answer. And that was when he knew something was terribly wrong. When Wyatt returned to Thailand, he was met with horrifying news. Liam had died, in a brutal and unnatural way. Wyatt immediately reported the incident and brought the police to Nate's house. Inside the house, they found Sophie. She lay dead on the bed, her body exhausted beyond measure, her feet decayed, but Nate was nowhere to be found. Wyatt was confused, worried, unable to understand what had happened. That night he stayed in the prayer room, chanting and praying without rest. When exhaustion finally took him, he fell asleep, and he dreamed in the dream. Nate walked ahead of him, leading him deep into a forest. Wyatt woke up in shock. He was certain then Nate was trying to tell him something. After discussing the matter with the police, and once the suspected burial site was identified, Wyatt went there together with officers and rescue volunteers. They searched, and finally, they found Nate. What remained of him was nothing but bones. Wyatt was devastated. He urged the police to uncover the truth behind everything. The investigation moved quickly. Wyatt told the officers that Nate had once called him, pouring his heart out. He spoke of how Liam and Sophie had wounded him deeply, both emotionally and mentally. Piece by piece, the police connected the evidence and concluded that Nate had been killed by Liam and Sophie. As for how Liam and Sophie had died, to the police, it remained an unsolved mystery. But Wyatt could guess. And slowly he came to accept what had happened. Some deaths are not collected by the living. Some betrayals are answered by karma itself. And some truths do not need to be spoken aloud.
Drawn by BikiBaam. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, so you won't miss any of our new creative clips. Support our art journey with a super thanks. See you again in the next clip. Coming soon.